record on this computer. All right, so we are recording. I do have to upload last week's classes. I was in and out of internet because I went camping Friday, so classes will be uploaded today at some point, so that way you can see them. I am showing you my screen without showing you my screen. That's great. So here we go. Welcome to ELA week 2. I thought my computer froze for a second. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to work on, we talked about figurative language and we went through it. We're going to go back to it, but I kind of am going to change gears. So really, really important is your writing and knowing sentence structure. And once you understand sentence structure, it's really easy to find mistakes. So we're gonna go back in time, shall we say, and learn a little bit about sentence structure. So first off, part of sentence structure is also grammar, right? What is grammar? Why grammar is your friend? Grammar, it's the structure and the system of language, or languages in general, usually considered to consist of a syntax or morphology. So basically, it's a system of rules. Grammar has rules in place. But in fact, no other language has rules. We use the word rules loosely. It's more of a suggestion. But so languages, a lot of languages don't have the same kind of grammar structure as we do. But over time, we have affixed it to the sentence structures. So there are 9 parts of speech. There's verbs, verb tenses. So action verbs express what is happening, like do or work. State verbs express the situation, be or have. Nouns, that should be at the next sentence down. Nouns represent the people, the person, place, things. So people, Mary, Miss Kate, Mr. Jim, Miss Sam. Places, school, work, home. Things, table, music, CD, cell phone. Adjectives. Adjectives is a word that tells us more about the noun. So it's a big building downtown. It's a big red building downtown. That car is expensive, or an expensive car. So adjectives tell us more. They give us more juicy bits about that noun, right? Adverbs. Adverbs tell us more about the verbs. So adjectives are adverbs. Loudly, really, extremely. So it could be a loudly painted red building downtown. Loudly could be loud as in being really loud verbally, or it could be like loud, like busy, right? So it's a really expensive car, using all your stuff, that takes us to work. Determiners. Determiners are like words like the, and this. This starts the noun phrase. Prepositions. A preposition expresses the relationship of a noun pronoun to another word, at, in, from. So you have the, and, this, those are determiners. Prepositions are at, in, from. I am from Gloversville, New York, right? I am from Albany. I'm from the city. Pronouns. Pronouns are small words like you, ours, and some that can take place of the noun. So you can take the noun out and play our, you tend to use the noun too, but our red, expensive table, right? Conjunctions. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Basically, conjunctions join 2 parts of a sentence with and, but, or though. So when you use and or but, You have two sentences, like two different sentences. You have Miss Kate likes music, comma, and there's your conjunction, Jeeps. I don't know, I'm just naming some stuff off so you get it. Conjunctions are going to be the joiners, so and, but, and though. Interjections are short explanations. So interjections have no grammatical value, so that's like, wow, oh my God. We use that now, or OMG exclamation point. Ah, oh no. Anytime you're like using those big things, any big explanations, those are interjections. And I'm saving you from watching Schoolhouse Rocks, but I will attach them into our classroom, Google Classroom, just so you have it, because I think they're great. Phrases. So we're talking about conjunctions, and they're hooking up phrases and clauses. So the first thing is a phrase. A phrase is one or more words that form a meaningful grammatical unit within a clause. There are 5 types of phrases. So the first one is a noun phrase. A noun phrase, or NP, can be a single noun or a group of words built around a single noun. So animals need water. Who ate the last sandwich? All the passengers with tickets can board now. So just using the nouns. Animals are the noun. Sandwich is the noun. Passengers are the noun. Verb phrase. So a verb phrase or verb group contains a main verb and its auxiliary verbs. So we have been working since 9 a.m. I will be going to France next week. I wish. It may have been being repaired. That sentence is horrible. It may have been being repaired. That is, no, don't use that. That's horrible. I will be going to France next week. It's a great verb phrase. So going, doing something. What's the doing part of it? So you have to have a verb, you have to have a noun. So it's like working. We, there's your replacer, have been working since 9 a.m. Going to France, right? Adjective phrase. An adjective phrase can be a single adjective or group. He has clever ideas. It was a very big meal. The students are really bored with this film. My daughter's like, I'm bored. No, you're not. So like using the word bored, watch where you're using it. It's not like a standalone. So the students were really bored watching the film. There are some really boring films out there. Some of them are very educational. We like making you watch them. But he has clever ideas. It was very big, right? Adverbs. So adverbs, same thing. Please do it now. He spoke very softly. They did it as fast as possible, right? So those words, very softly, now, fast, those things, moving. What are they? They're adding to it. Prepositions. They were arguing about money. The window is behind the large sofa. Oh, the window is behind the large brown sofa. They resumed after an unusually large meal. So prepositions. Okay, so those are the 5 main types. You have noun phrase, you have verb phrases, you have adjective phrases, you have adverb phrases, prepositional phrases, right? So they all make up your sentences. So let's go back. What on earth is a sentence? And long ago, back in the day, you learned this. Wow, that is really hard to read. I'm sorry. So back long ago, you learned what a sentence is, and you do them automatically because you've grown up learning these. We are reviewing them because sometimes we don't put sentences in the correct way. And to improve our reading, we have to have that foundation, right? So what is a sentence? A sentence has a subject and it has a predicate. So the sentence is this is a sentence. The subject is this. We have a car. Right? So you have a subject and you have a predicate. So you is the subject, oops, speak English is the predicate. So it's important that you have to have these two to have a sentence. So if you're getting kicked back a whole bunch of grammar issues, some of it might be your sentence is too long. That's where you see a lot of stuff, a lot of mistakes, or is when your sentence is way too long because you have a lot of thoughts you want to add to it, and you just need to shorten it. My way of creating any essay or any type of writing is I use the phrase, keep it simple, stupid. And the way I say that is because you never know who your reader is going to be. You never know if they're a beginning reader or if they're an advanced reader. You don't know like what their level of reading is. You don't know like if they understand your subject, right? If you think of the thing that you absolutely love most to do, say it might be video games. Now, I am absolutely clueless when it comes to video games. I don't understand them. The last video game I played was like on the Atari. Actually, no, I lied. I did play the original Super Mario Brothers on an original console, and that was a while ago. Or Duck Hunt, but that was the last one I had. I did have Animal Crossing, the original, on GameCube too, but other than that, I don't really play video games, so I don't understand them well. A lot of you do play video games. So if you were writing a paper on video games, you would have to keep it really simple, right? Because I don't understand. You can't just go right into the topic. You have to keep it simple. The same goes when you're writing your essay for task. You have to keep it somewhat simple so the reader can understand. Now, keeping it simple is a lot different than keeping it meaningful and informational packed, right? So you can still informationally pack a sentence, but if you keep it simple and you make it short, now not all of your sentences need to be short, but if you have this big long paragraph and it is one sentence, you got to stop back up and you got to make it like 3 sentences, right? You need to break that up. So the reason I'm going back to what is a sentence is because it's important that you know and that you catch yourself from writing too long of a sentence, because we want to keep it simple. We want to keep the reader engaged. We want to have the reader understand our point of view. And I think where are we now? Okay. Okay, so there's 4 types of sentences. There's declarative, which is a statement. There's interrogative, which is a question. Imperative, which is command. And exclamative, which is exclamation points. So declarative, it tells us to do something. So John likes Mary. It tells us something, sorry. So like John likes Mary. The haunted house. There's a house that is haunted. Interrogative is a question. It asks us something. Does Mary like John? So the first one's like, John likes Mary. So we know that John likes Mary. The second one is, does Mary like John? Right? Anytime we get that question mark, the final punctuation is always going to be that question mark. Do you want to have steak for dinner? You know, anytime you have that voice inflect of up, that is an interrogative sentence. Imperative, it tells us to do something. Stop, put your feet on the ground. I can't tell you how many times I say this in a day. Stop, put your feet on the ground. So anytime you work with young kids, you always tell them their name or stop, and then you tell them what you want to do immediately. You keep it simple. Close the door. So if you're telling somebody to do something, make sure your command isn't too long, right? Keep it simple, keep it easy. If you make it really difficult to understand, and this goes really great when you're in a fight or you're talking and you want to get your point across and you find yourself yelling. step back. And if you listen to yourself, because a lot of times if you're telling somebody to do something, right? If you have too many words in your sentence, especially when you're talking to children, it won't get done, right? I'm always like, Josie, please go pick up the living room. That's a lot of sentence. Instead of just saying, Josie, go pick up. That's dealing with, I've taught preschool, so I'm really good at this. You know, stop, put your feet on the floor. Do not climb on that. So keep your commands simple, because then people can understand them. Now, please watch when you're saying commands, right? Because not everybody likes to be commanded to do stuff. All right, so exclamation. It tells a surprise. What a funny story he told us. Holy moly, that costs a lot of money. That ends in a exclamation point, right? So these are the 4 types of sentences. So it's really important that you know the difference. And these seem really simple. These seem really simple. But I think it's really important that we understand these things. Okay, so declarative sentence, we're going to dive in a little more. So declarative sentence makes a sentence, makes a statement. So they tell us something, they give us information. They normally end with a full stop period. This is most of the time, your biggest sentence structure comes from declarative sentences. I like coffee. I do not like coffee. No, I love coffee. We watched TV last night. I did not watch TV last night. So most of your sentences are going to give us that information. It's going to tell us something. Most of your essay for task is going to have this declarative sentence. It is the most common type of sentence. That's the most important thing you should know. It could be positive or negative, but it's always going to tell us something. This is the most common type. Interrogative, ask a question. Do you like coffee? You know, again, it ends with that question mark. Don't you like coffee? Don't you like tea? Why did you go? Where did you go? Right? Those question marks. When we talk, we use a lot of interrogative questions. Again, if you're asking a question and somebody's not understanding you, this happens in the workplace. This happened to us as a group recently. A bunch of us were on a call and the person was asking questions and we weren't understanding. They were asking too much in their question and we weren't understanding it. So like we had them explain it in simpler terms. This is what I try to do as I'm teaching. You just have to be mindful. If somebody's not understanding what you're talking about, you're not keeping it simple. Imperative. Again, watch what you say, watch how you do it, and make sure that you know what's going on. Give her coffee. Don't give her coffee. Do not stop. Right? There's positive and negatives to all this, but be mindful of your commands. Okay, so moving on. So there's 4 types of sentences, right? There's sentence structures. What is a sentence? We saw there's minimal requirements for formation of sentences. Now we're going to look at more detail. So simple sentences. Simple sentences are the ones when we first learn how to read. These are the ones we learn. Go, Mary, go. Stop, spot, stop, right? I like coffee. Mary likes tea. The earth goes around the sun. Mary did not go to the party. Those are simple. They're very simple thoughts. They're complete thoughts, but they're simple. This is an independent clause. Next is a compound, right? A compound has 2 or more independent clauses joined together with a conjunction, aka, and, but, or though, or, nor, for, yet. So any of those. I like coffee and Mary likes tea. Mary went to work and John went to the party. Our car broke down, semicolon, which we're going to learn about in a little bit. And probably I'll throw it in next week. Semicolons are my favorite. Semicolons, you can break up your sentence with a semicolon. Don't be scared of it. Our car broke down. Within the same thought, so semicolons, we'll go into more detail, but you're gonna have, they are two independent sentences that you can be joined together with the same thought in mind. So our car broke down, semicolon, we came last. So like if they were in a race, our car broke down, we came in last, or we came last. There are 7 coordinates to conjunctions. And this is again where I'd play conjunction junction, and, but, or, nor, for, yet, so. Those are important. We use and, but, or, but you can also use more, for, yet, so. Just makes your sentences more unique, more filled, more scholarly, shall we say. All right, so then you have a complex sentence. Complex sentences consist of an independent clause plus a dependent clause. So examples, we missed our plane because we were late. Our dog barks when she hears a noise. He left in a hurry after he got a phone call. Do you know the man who's talking to Mary? Right? Here are some common subordinating conjunctions. So we had conjunctions of and, but, or, nor, for, yet, so. Those are like the main conjunctions. You have some subordinating conjunctions that makes it more. This is where you're filling in your sentence and you're trying to sound way smarter than you are. Although, because, since, once, though, till, until, where, whether, while. The 5 basic pronouns are that, which, who, whom, or whose, right? So we missed our plane because we were late. A lot of people use because. They don't use really cool ones. Let me think of another sentence that has sometimes you can start with them. So like, although she likes blah, 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 now, and she likes blah, 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 right? So sometimes you can get away, but do not start a sentence with because. Although is like one of those, after although is one of those like ones that are different. Because is not something, you don't start a sentence with because. Ever. I'll say that again. Do not ever start a sentence with because. Ever. Okay. So complex sentence structure is adding more, right? So John didn't come because he was so ill, so Mary was not happy. He left in a hurry after he got a phone call. No, this is where I put a comma in, but he came back 5 minutes later. So you can have more added to your sentence. Okay, so that's the basic part of structure of sentences, right? So now you can link them, right? Linking verbs, linking intransitive verbs, linking transitive verbs. And what does this all mean? The real difference between linking intransitive and transitive verbs is whether or not they have an object. Linking verbs have no object. Linking verbs link 2 parts of a sentence. They link the subject to a noun or adjective. This is the sense, in this sense, linking verbs are like mathematical equal signs. Mr. Jim would like this. So here's the subject, Mary is a nurse. It's like the is the equal sign. Mary equals nurse. Mary is a nurse. So linking is a lot like the equal sign, because you have Mary and then you have she's a nurse. Mary is a nurse. That's your equal sign. Linking verbs do not make sense if used alone. They need a subject, complement, to complete their meaning. They are, question mark? Like, what are they then? Like, what are you trying to reach for? What is your question? I will say this and be like, tell me more. Expand on that. They are teachers. I feel, and these are cliffhangers. Like, you're like, okay, what do you feel? You can't just be like, I feel, and leave it at that, because we're all going to be like, well, what do you feel? You know? So you can be like, I feel unwell. Those are the linking verbs in two different ways. So you can have Mary is my mother, or you can have Mary is English. It's like there's two different ways to link it, but you have to like fill in the sentence. You can't link unless you fill in the sentence. Otherwise, you're like, what? What do you feel? What's going on? All right. The most obvious linking verb is be. But you have other ones. You have other ones you can use. Appear, become, feel, get, grow, look, remain, seem, smell, sound, taste, turn. So here are some examples. Is that your car? I'm feeling thirsty. John is my boyfriend. My father became an engineer. Milk will turn sour if you leave it. Then you get sour cream. Her explanation did not appear plausible. Hillary remained under suspicion for the rest of her life. I did not write that sentence. So linking. They're just linking into your sentence. You can put I am equals thirsty, right? So there's your link. John equals my boyfriend. My father equals an engineer. See how you can put the equal sign in there? Any linking will be an equal sign. Milk will turn, the milk will equals sour if you leave it. So if you leave milk out, it's going to turn sour. Her explanation did not appear plausible. A lot of times you could put the equal sign in there. Oops. Okay, so I have a super quick video, and then I'm going to give you a few minutes, but here's a quick video, and this kind of ties up everything we learned about sentence structure.
Do you get stressed when you have to write? You don't know where to start? Your sentences always sound the same. Writing is terrifying. Here are 6 ways to start a sentence. 1. The subject. One of the best ways to start a sentence is to put the subject first and the verb second. The subject of a sentence is the person, place, thing, or idea. It has to be followed by a verb, a word that tells you what the subject is doing. I cooked spaghetti. The dog ran home. John read a book. Number 2, explaining where or when something happens. You can start a sentence with words that tell you where something is happening. On the beach, there was a shipwreck. Or it could be beside the beach, by the beach, near the beach. You can also start a sentence with words that tell you when something is happening. After school, we played computer games. Or it could be before school. Don't forget to use a comma. Number 3, asking a question. Have you ever thought of starting a sentence with a question? A question makes the reader think. Which songs do you like best? Who is the richest person in the world? Make sure you answer your question in the next sentence. Have you brushed your teeth today? Forgetting to brush your teeth leads to bad breath and tooth decay. 4. An ing phrase. You can start a sentence with an action ending in ing. Looking at the clock, she realized she was going to be late. Sitting on the beach, I watched the sun set over the ocean. Running home quickly, she got soaked in the pouring rain. Or you can use a doing word ending with ed. Frightened by the loud fireworks, the dog hid under the table. Excited about her birthday, she woke up very early. If you do start with ing or ed words, don't forget to use a comma before you complete the sentence. 6. ly words. Finally, the last way to start a sentence is using an ly word. Carefully, she tiptoed past the sleeping monster. Hungrily, the dog chewed the bone. These ly words also need a comma before you write the rest of the sentence. Well, now you know 6 different ways to start a sentence. Before you start writing, add them to your plan to remind you to use them, and you'll find that writing isn't so scary after all.
Right. So, where's my mouse? All right, there she is. So I'm gonna keep going because I know that we're just recording right now. So that's the end of ELA. I am gonna switch over to social studies. So if you want to take a few minutes, I'm just gonna set everything up. That way this whole class is recorded. So we're gonna keep on going with our sentence structure for this. And next week, so I sent home, well, you'll get them. I went and photocopied a bunch of stuff. You're gonna get a folder. You're gonna get a folder from me, and inside the folder is the book photocopied right in the center. So that way you have a paper version. You'll also get a bunch of myths and legends and stuff like that, because we're going to talk about myths, legends, folk tales, folklore, and fairy tales next week, on top of continuing on our sentence structure stuff, because I think it's really important that you understand the aspect of all the stuff that you're about to read during your test. So yeah, so we're gonna continue. I am recording, but just know that when you get this from me, it's like, it looks like a lot. Just know the book is thick, but you'll see it's big text. It's the biggest text I could find, and it's a really easy read. Don't worry about reading it or starting it yet. We will get there. And I will talk to you about what is due at the end of class for next week, because you will get your stuff. It is for next week, so you'll be fine. All right, we're gonna switch over to social studies. Content, slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so we're doing early civilizations till 12:15. You'll see me talk a little bit, and there's a lot of movies in that, a lot of videos in this, because I think it's really great for you to understand and see some of this stuff. Make sure you are muted. Thank you. So first up is civilizations, early civilizations. So how I'm gonna do social studies is that we did geography last week. I'm gonna walk through pretty quickly global, because most of you actually have been through global class. And then we're gonna hit US history pretty hard. US history, It makes up the majority of the test, but I do it at the end for a reason, so that way you remember it. Global is more of a review for you all, but I'm going to run through it, and I'm going to add some stuff into it that is pretty much on the test, some shape, form. But we're gonna run through global pretty quick. You'll see, we're gonna hit as much as we humanly can. But I did put a couple movies in here because I think they're important. All right, so let's talk about civilizations. We can't talk about anything in the world. So obviously, our America, there were civilizations here, but civilizations are defined as highly organized society marked with advanced knowledge of trade, government, arts, science, and often the written language. So a civilization, that's how we mark it. It's it doesn't have to be like you think highly organized society and you think our society today, but think lesser terms as long as it's a group of people together and they're trading and they have like some sort of like hierarchy of government involved, that would be that would be considered a civilization. So early civilizations, when we talk about the first civilizations in the world, they were pretty much located on this Fertile Crescent. So you can see here's the Mediterranean Sea over here. You have all this Fertile Crescent. This is where all the rivers, you have the Tigris and Euphrates River. These rivers were very soil rich. So this is where pretty much everybody like flocked to. This is where everybody was like really having good civilizations because of these rivers, and they were very, very, very good for agriculture.
Excuse me, Miss Kate.
Yeah.
This is Bria.
Hi, Bree.
I'm sorry for logging on so late.
It's okay. You're fine.
I was wondering, do I have to sit? I just literally woke up. Do I have to sit for this part also, or am I just math with Mr. Jim and writing with you?
So I don't remember, you passed your social studies, yes?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you told me you were going to text me a few minutes before Mr. Jim got on.
Yeah, I thought you were missing social studies. Okay. I thought it was social studies you needed. Okay. So if you don't need social studies, then you do not need to be here.
It was just a little bit of writing, that was all.
Okay, so I will have the recording for you and it will be up. I covered sentence structure heavily this morning.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Jim, when you get a chance, you could just email me. Or text me before you go start.
Well, he'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow's his day.
Oh, okay. Oh, so I'm done for the day.
Well, you have to be back at, I think it's 1:30, 2 o'clock into the main room with Miss Sam.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Miss Kate.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right, so the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age was a time period after the Stone Age, obviously. First we had the Stone Age, then we had the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age was a time of period when the bronze replaced stone as better material for making weapons and tools. This gave way for greater development in agriculture and brought about changes that made people's lives easier. Some groups in the Bronze Age developed early writing and other innovations like the wheel, irrigation, and potter's wheel. So these are examples over on this side that are of bronze tools and what they look like. Okay, Sumerian or Sumer was an early civilization, social and economic. They had social, economic, and intellectual basis. They had irrigated fields, which is huge. So they irrigated their fields. So irrigation means just to bring water to. They had three main crops, so the barley, dates, and sesame seeds. They built canals, dikes, and dams, and drainage systems. So they got water to where they needed and into their cities. They developed a beginning form of writing. They also developed the wheel. They had an abundance of food that basically was because of their way they were farming. So they had a giant increase of population. This is also Sumeria, or Sumer was the first city of the world. Developed a trade system with bartering, so mainly barley, but also wool and cloth was traded for stones, metals, timber, copper, ivory, pearls. So you would use a barter system. So I have some barley, you have some wool. I need some wool to make clothing. So you were able to trade what you had. Individuals could rent land from the priests who controlled the land on behalf of the gods. So they were polytheistic, so they worshiped many gods. And most of the profits of trade went to the temples. Okay, so here is this super quick movie.
2,000 years ago, ancient civilizations such as the Roman Empire in the west and the Han Dynasty in the east had risen to prominence. In the modern Middle East, the Parthian Empire ruled ancient Persia and the surrounding regions from their main capital at Ctesiphon. These cultures are known to us as being almost unfathomably ancient, but what was ancient to them? 6,000 years ago, 4,000 years before Augustus created the Roman Empire, one of the first true urban settlements emerged in the ancient region of Sumer. Its people's accomplishments sowed the seeds for civilization to spread, first to the ancient Near East and then the entire world. Welcome to our series on the ancient Near East, beginning with the period from Uruk to Akkad. Beginning in the aftermath of the last ice age, 10,000 years ago, the human population of Mesopotamia and several other regions gradually began to adopt a more settled mode of living. This was a lifestyle which contrasted with the earlier ways in which humans had survived, most commonly by functioning as hunter-gatherers. They would begin to cultivate, modify, plant, and harvest crops in the earliest forms of agriculture and herd animals. Many humans gradually began to live in this manner in small village communities, while others retained their primal hunter-gatherer lifestyle. However, over the thousands of years following the glacial retreat, agricultural lifestyles increased in popularity. In ancient Mesopotamia, the increased surpluses of food generated by agricultural production would soon lead to the blossoming of civilization's first seeds. At this point, it is important to detail the unique geographical and environmental state of Mesopotamia and to understand how this affected the development of civilization there. The name itself literally means land between rivers, specifically the Tigris and Euphrates. The latter of these watercourses was given the name Burinan by the native Sumerians, a word meaning great rushing flood, a phenomenon which would define the relationship of the native people with their gods and land. Consequently, many prominent Mesopotamian deities such as Enlil, the chief god of the pantheon, were related to wind, air, and storms. The faithful of Sumer would seek to appease these gods to stave off the common devastating and inexplicable flash floods which struck the region, made worse by the flat nature of the Tigris-Euphrates plain. For instance, on one occasion in Sumerian myth, Enlil destroyed all of humanity with a flood simply because they were too noisy, showing the arbitrary and often capricious nature of the Mesopotamian gods. Early village settlements in the land between rivers required most or all of the population to be engaged in the production of food. This was known as the Ubaid period, which lasted from around 6,500 to 3,800 BC, of which Eridu is a prominent settlement. However, the increasing food surplus allowed the maintenance of full-time specialized workers who were not engaged in agriculture, such as merchants, weavers, metallurgists, and craftsmen. It is worth noting that the taxation and redistribution of food supplies led to the formation of governments. The first true city of the Mesopotamian area is disputed, but most historians believe that it was the famous urban center at Uruk, whose urban way of life was indisputably superior to all of its surrounding contemporaries. Huge buildings were present, as well as social hierarchy, high officials, and temple-sponsored craft workshops. This early city developed a stratified society and was initially not ruled by a king as we know them, but as a high priest of the temples. There were two of these temple complexes in Uruk, the Iana district and the older Anu district. This proto-king's power was derived from his leading role in the temple itself, representing the various gods and goddesses of Sumer. Just below the priest-king in status were the keepers, scribes, priests, and administrators whose activities were meant to ensure the community's organization and cohesion. At the bottom of the hierarchy were the producers, such as farmers and fishermen. The very first systems of writing also developed in this period, possibly as a memory aid for the recording of tributes, taxes, and distributions of surplus food, and were mainly based on simple symbols.
Okay, so it goes on for a while, but I just wanted to show you like the basic hierarchy. There's a lot going on in this time period. This is what it would look like, and then it advanced and it kept advancing as we kept going, especially for writing.
Rather than representing a spoken language.
Stall. Okay. All right, so up next is the Code of Hammurabi. To enforce his rule, Hammurabi collected all the laws of the Babylon in a code that would apply everywhere in land. It was the most extensive law code from the ancient world. So it was about 1800 BCE. The code had 282 laws inscribed on a stone pillar and placed in a public hall for all to see. Hammurabi's stone depicts Hammurabi receiving the authority from the god Shamash. I said that wrong. I don't know how to really say it, but Shamash is what we're going with. Set of divinely inspired laws as well as societal laws. Punishments were designed to fit crimes, and of people must be responsible for their own actions. So this is where we get the terms eye for an eye. If a son struck his father, the son's hand would be cut off, right? So it's like, you know, thieving, you or like speaking out of turn and stuff like that, you can have your tongue cut off, eye for an eye. Consequently, for crimes, depending on the rank of society. So there's this, I won't show this one, but this is more, he's got a bunch of really great videos. If you want to look up more about Hammurabi, you can. But for sake of time, we're going to move on. So ancient Egypt, most of you know, Egypt has the pyramids, right? So the beginning one is you have 3100 BC. King Nermer unites Egypt and records it as like an empire, as a place. The first step pyramid is built in 2650 BC. And then you keep going on. You have Egyptians introduce gods for all their areas of their lives. And you have people invading with the chariot, right? You see all these things in all the depictions of Egypt. You've seen all these things. You have ways to track the Nile, which is a river running through by Egypt. You have a new kingdom, right? This is a time for new kingdoms. Then you have more gods introduced. And then you have Alexander the Great conquered Egypt and founded Alexandria. And then you have Queen Cleopatra, who kills herself, and Rome conquers Egypt more. So you have all these things. You have a bunch of gods. These are the time you have Anubis and Thoth and Bastet and Horus and Hathor. You have all these different gods that are starting to play in place. So at the top of the pyramid, so it's definitely a pyramid. A society looks like a pyramid, and they built pyramids. This is how their society was produced. So you have the top, you have the pharaohs. Pharaohs were the rulers. The word pharaoh means great house. The pharaoh was the most powerful person in Egypt, and some considered him to be God. So most of them they considered to become gods or be gods. Ramses II ruled Egypt over 60 years. In that time, he fathered 156 children. He was a brave soldier, and he was a great builder. So and next on, you have the priests. The priests were very highly revered, so they were right under the pharaoh. And then you would have scribes, the people who were taking down all the text. Then you have craft workers. Then you have the peasants and slaves. So that is how the society was built. The River Nile was very important to Egyptians. It was provided water for drinking and for the crops. It was also a way for them to transport goods from one end to the other. Hieroglyphs was the system of writing which ancient Egypt used. I know you have seen them, but you have different letters. There were 700 different types of hieroglyphs. So that's how they would write. Pyramids were stepstones. Each stone weighed as much as 2 to 2.5 elephants. So the stones are huge. Finished pyramids had a white coating. So you see pyramids today, you don't see as much of the white coating. There's certain pyramids, the Pyramid of Giza, the plateau that you can see that have the white coating. But they were very, 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 very shiny, and it was very sunny there, so the white stone would just glisten. The Great Sphinx at Giza guards the pyramids there. So you see the Sphinx. It was a guard. It was meant to be guardianship over the things. It has a body of a lion and a face of a human. So this one is super quick.
The ancient Egyptian civilization lasted for over 3,000 years and became one of the most powerful and iconic civilizations in history. At its height, ancient Egypt's empire stretched as far north as modern-day Syria and as far south as today's Sudan. But long before it was an empire, ancient Egypt was a series of small, independent city-states that bloomed along North Africa's Nile River. The city-states were divided into 2 regions and named according to the flow of the Nile. Upper Egypt in the south, which was upstream, and Lower Egypt in the north, which was downstream. By about 3100 BC, the 2 halves united, thereby creating one Egyptian state that lasted for millennia. The reign of this civilization can be divided into 3 major periods of prosperity, called the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms, and 2 periods of instability in between, called the First and Second Intermediate Periods. Guiding the Egyptian people was a succession of about 300 rulers, often referred to as pharaohs. Pharaoh, which means great house in Egyptian, was never the ruler's formal title. It only became synonymous with the ruling individual in modern times, thanks to its use in the Hebrew Bible. These rulers, who were not always men, nor Egyptian, were considered protectors of the people and served as divine liaisons between humanity and the hundreds of gods they worshipped. After the rulers passed away, ancient Egyptians believed they then became gods. To prepare their journey into the afterlife, the rulers constructed elaborate tombs, including the Great Pyramids at Giza and underground mausoleums in the Valley of the Kings. Rulers filled their tombs with all the items they could need in the afterlife, including gold, jewelry, food, drink, and even pets. Preparing for this journey to the gods also involved mummifying one's body. The deceased's corpse was embalmed, wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen, and placed inside the tomb so the body could be reanimated in the afterlife. To this day, structures like the Great Pyramids are a testament to the role of religion in ancient Egyptians' lives. But they also represent the innovative and cultural might of the Egyptian people. Innovations in mathematics and written language in particular propelled their civilization to success. Math, specifically measurement mathematics, helped Egyptians understand and harness their world with numbers like no other civilization had before. They developed a new form of measurement called the cubit. It was used to design massive structures, such as the Great Pyramid, with remarkable geometrical precision. The Egyptians also measured time. By combining mathematics with astronomy, they established a 24-hour division to the day and created a solar calendar. which was the first dating system in history to feature 365 days in 1 year. Lastly, Egyptians developed methods to measure and survey land around the Nile River. These civil engineering feats made way for the construction of dams, canals, and irrigation systems that helped farming and agriculture to flourish in the Nile Valley. In addition to mathematical concepts, the ancient Egyptians also created written languages to describe the world around them. The oldest and probably most well-known of these is hieroglyphic writing. This system was developed around 3150 BC during the Old Kingdom and has over 700 pictorial characters. It was used to inscribe monuments and pottery and predominantly served a decorative or ceremonial purpose. Soon after, another ancient form of writing, called hieratic, developed out of the hieroglyphic system. It was a form of cursive that was written in ink and served a more functional purpose. Unlike its more formal predecessor, hieratic was written on another ancient Egyptian innovation, papyrus. Papyrus was a type of paper derived from the papyrus plant, which grew plentifully along the Nile River. This medium gave the ancient Egyptians a new avenue of communication and record-keeping that allowed their civilization's administrative skill to grow and their culture to spread for thousands of years. As with all great empires, ancient Egypt came to an end. It was eventually conquered after a series of invasions, including those by the Persian Empire in the 4th century BC and the Roman Empire around 30 BC. Not many civilizations can claim a lifespan of over 3,000 years, let alone one that made vast cultural contributions that still resonate in modern times. Ancient Egypt, with its linguistic and mathematical innovations, spirituality and religion, and extensive political and military might, set a high standard for all civilizations that followed.
Okay. Okay, so on we move, we have a little bit more time. Okay, so next is the history and culture and influences. China, we're gonna move over to China. So China is isolated from other civilizations during this time. Created as advanced civilization all on its own. The religion during this time was Buddhism. Confucius was a famous teacher of it. Proverbs to guide life and family importance, and that's still true today in China. The economy, trade was mostly among cities. Little trade happened with the outside world. Trade occurred at gates of the Great Wall, and eventually it led to the Silk Road, which is trade route from Asia to Europe. It's 4,000 miles long, and the trade route. So the Silk Road was the fastest way to get through, to get goods from one end to the other. It also was a great influence of, how people could exchange ideas and cultures. So it was really good for like all the stuff and all the different kinds of things found on the Silk Road. It stretched, again, 4,000 miles. People traded silk and spices and tea and porcelain. Merchants from India also brought ideas from Buddhism to China. So they brought different ideas with them. So it was a really, really great way to get from one end to the other. Eventually, Silk Road would go from the Roman Empire all the way to Kazakhstan and reach through. So, important thing to know about the Silk Road is that its main thing is its title, and it's silk. So most people do not know, and I'm sorry, Mariah, because I know you've sat through this once, but I wanted to show it again. So it is the Silk Road. This is silk making. So silk, as you see it, is usually a fabric, and it's a very light, kind of very smooth, soft fabric. But here's how you make it. Okay. So yes, silk. Oops, so silk is stop it. Silk is made from worms, silkworms, and they basically make their cocoons. And once the cocoons are done, yes, the worms are still inside. Then they get boiled, and then everything gets kind of like strung out, and they unravel the cocoons, and they get all the silk from the cocoons. That is how traditional silk is made. That is how 100% silk is still made, as long as it's not synthetic. It is still made the same process that you kind of just watched. China kept the secret on how to make silk. Silk was and when they started exporting onto the Silk Road, they saw that this fabric was amazing, but China kept the secret on how to do it. There's some really interesting books because it was still a very kept secret, and like there's a lot of stuff that the video didn't show you that silk is how it's made, and it's still a very well kept secret to silk makers. So you saw a little bit about it. So the Silk Road was huge, and the Silk Road was a huge information session of sharing. You would travel place to place. The traders would travel place to place. Here's the Kimbals, as you could see. They would travel to these places. They would exchange their goods from other goods that the Chinese Empire did not have, and vice versa. So it was a really great way to trade and get new goods. This is a very short video also, and that should end us because it is 11:54.
A banker in London sends the latest stock info to his colleagues in Hong Kong in less than a second. With a single click, a customer in New York orders electronics made in Beijing, transported across the ocean within days by cargo plane or container ship. The speed and volume at which goods and information move across the world today is unprecedented in history. But global exchange itself is older than we think, reaching back over 2,000 years along a 5,000-mile stretch known as the Silk Road. The Silk Road wasn't actually a single road, but a network of multiple routes that gradually emerged over centuries, connecting to various settlements and to each other, thread by thread. The first agricultural civilizations were isolated places in fertile river valleys, their travel impeded by surrounding geography and fear of the unknown. But as they grew, they found that the arid deserts and steppes on their borders were inhabited not by the demons of folklore, but nomadic tribes on horseback. The Scythians, who ranged from Hungary to Mongolia, had come in contact with the civilizations of Greece, Egypt, India, and China. These encounters were often less than peaceful. But even through raids and warfare, as well as trade and protection of traveling merchants in exchange for tariffs, the nomads began to spread goods, ideas, and technologies between cultures with no direct contact. One of the most important strands of this growing web was the Persian Royal Road, completed by Darius I in the 5th century BCE. Stretching nearly 2,000 miles from the Tigris River to the Aegean Sea, its regular relay points allowed goods and messages to travel in nearly 1/10 the time it would take a single traveler. With Alexander the Great's conquest of Persia and expansion into Central Asia through capturing cities like Samarkand and establishing new ones like Alexandria Eshat, the network of Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Indian culture and trade extended farther east than ever before, laying the foundations for a bridge between China and the West. This was realized in the 2nd century BCE when an ambassador named Shang Qian, sent to negotiate with nomads in the West, returned to the Han Emperor with tales of sophisticated civilizations, prosperous trade, and exotic goods beyond the western borders. Ambassadors and merchants were sent towards Persia and India to trade silk and jade for horses and cotton, along with armies to secure their passage. Eastern and Western routes gradually linked together into an integrated system spanning Eurasia, enabling cultural and commercial exchange farther than ever before. Chinese goods made their way to Rome, causing an outflow of gold that led to a ban on silk, while Roman glassware was highly prized in China. Military expeditions in Central Asia also saw encounters between Chinese and Roman soldiers, possibly even transmitting crossbow technology to the Western world. Demand for exotic and foreign goods and the profits they brought kept the strands of the Silk Road intact, even as the Roman Empire disintegrated and Chinese dynasties rose and fell. Even Mongolian hordes, known for pillage and plunder, actively protected the trade routes rather than disrupting them. But along with commodities, these routes also enabled the movement of traditions, innovations, ideologies, and languages. Originating in India, Buddhism migrated to China and Japan to become the dominant religion there. Islam spread from the Arabian Peninsula into South Asia, blending with native beliefs and leading to new faiths like Sikhism. And gunpowder made its way from China to the Middle East, forging the futures of the Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal empires. In a way, the Silk Road's success led to its own demise as new maritime technologies like the magnetic compass found their way to Europe, making long land routes obsolete. Meanwhile, the collapse of Mongol rule was followed by China's withdrawal from international trade. But even though the old routes and networks did not last, they had changed the world forever, and there was no going back. Europeans seeking new maritime routes to the riches they knew awaited in East Asia led to the age of exploration and expansion into Africa and the Americas. Today, global interconnectedness shapes our lives like never before. Canadian shoppers buy t-shirts made in Bangladesh. Japanese audiences watch British television shows, and Tunisians use American software to launch a revolution. The impact of globalization on culture and economy is indisputable, but whatever its benefits and drawbacks, it is far from a new phenomenon. And though the mountains, deserts, and oceans that once separated us are now circumvented through supersonic vehicles, cross-continental communication cables, and signals beamed through space rather than caravans traveling for months, none of it would have been possible without the pioneering cultures whose efforts created the Silk Road, history's first World Wide Web.
All right, perfect. All right, before I go on, yeah, because there's more to it, and I want to make sure we are at a good stopping point, which this is. It's a little early, which is fine. Here, I'm gonna stop sharing so you guys can see me. So, again, you're gonna be getting notebooks from me. Well, they're like a folder, and it's got all your reading in it. I don't have handouts yet for social studies, but I will. And if you have questions, I am available. You guys have my cell phone number. I'm available after this too if you want more individual sessions. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to end class. It is almost 12 o'clock, so that way you have a little bit of time. Again, you guys have safe serve. I think she said at 2, right, Jim? You guys have safe serve at 2. So you have to be back in the morning meeting room by then, ready to do safe serve. But with that, I'm going to end class. If you have any questions, please reach out. You are free to do that at any point. And thank you for a good class. This will be up into the Google Classroom very shortly. Please make sure you add your Google Classroom or accept the invite because I have invited all of you. All right, again, all your homework was due today, so make sure you get your homework in. And with that, I'm going to end class. So you guys have a great day. They'll see you back at 2 o'clock. And yeah, and we'll be ready for Mr. Jim's class tomorrow. All right, have an amazing rest of your day, guys. All right, bye.